Hey folks, I'm Romi. I make crochet things and I show you how to make it for yourself. And today I am showing you how to make this shirt that I'm wearing right now. This shirt is amazing. Like, I think it's the best crochet shirt out there. Right, so this shirt took me 3 attempts over like a month, and writing the pattern also, like I had to rewrite it multiple times because I wanted it to be not just the perfect shirt, but like also a pattern that is adaptable to whatever your body type is or your body shape is. I think a lot of crochet shirts, they're very blocky because it's easier with crochet to make a rectangle than to make like a more complicated shape. We're used to sewn clothes. With sewing, it's a lot easier to make really neat curves that like actually contour the shapes of your body. With crochet, it's not that easy. And so what I did to kind of come up with this pattern was I took an existing shirt that I knew fit me well, and I kind of got a feel for like what the curves of the pieces of the fabric look like. Then I try to simplify those curves into like angles that can be easily converted into crochet. I already published a written pattern for this shirt, which you can get on my Etsy or my Ravelry. The pattern for this shirt isn't the traditional pattern where you just go row by row doing exactly as I do. It's adaptive to your measurements. So the first thing you have to do is measure your body. There's 3 measurements that it would take of your body. The first measurement is the widest point around your torso. That could be your belly, could be your hips. For me, it's gonna be my chest. So just take your measuring tape right under your armpits and relax and measure that width. For me, that was around 36 inches. Then you're gonna measure from this divot here between your clavicles and your neck all the way down to how long you want this shirt to be. So for me, that's like down to my crotch, so that's about 24 inches. And finally, you're gonna measure around your shoulder and your armpit, so the size of your sleeve hole, basically. You're just gonna pull that measuring tape all the way across, and for me, that's around 18 inches. With that said, we're gonna do some math on those measurements later on. The tools you're gonna need are, of course, measuring tape. You're going to need a 4.5 millimeter standard crochet hook. You're gonna need Cascade Ultra Pima yarn or any other DK weight cotton yarn. You're also gonna need a pair of scissors, and I think that's it. So this shirt pattern is made in 4 pieces. The 4 pieces represent 2 identical patterns for the front and 2 identical patterns on the back. Once you make those pieces, I'll show you how to stick them together. I'll show you how to make the sleeves. I'll show you how to make the collar. I'll show you how to make the button placket, and then the shirt is done. Each of the panels has instructions divided into quarters. So where I like to start with making the shirt is with these front 2 panels here. So these front 2 panels are exactly the same. I usually start with this middle stitch right here, or this middle row of chains, and then I move out. So I actually filmed the entire process of making this shirt. Like, it took me hours, but this yarn is very dark. So I realized that you can't see what I'm doing. So I went out and bought the exact same yarn in white. And I'm gonna be showing you how to do your initial chain stitches, your initial row of just like the classic stitch, and then how to do increases and decreases in the stitch. So to start your chain, just gonna wanna do a little slip knot and 2 chains. And now we can do our multiples of 3. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And we're gonna do that all the way till we reach our desired length, or like slightly past it, still staying to multiples of 3. Because I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes, I'm gonna make it really small. Once we reach our desired chain length, you're going to want to do 3 more chains. 1, 2, 3. Now, yarn over, and 4 chains away, gonna insert your hook and pull through. So now you have 3 loops. Pull through 2, pull through 2, chain. So now, we yarn over again, we skip the next chain, and on the chain after, we do a double crochet again. Pull through 2, pull through 2. Then another double crochet in the next chain. pull through two, pull through two, and a chain. So this will be our repeating pattern. 2 double crochets, chain, skip the next chain and into the next chain. After that, we double crochet. Double crochet, then we double crochet again, and chain. See, we end up with this pattern of big space, little space, big space, little space. These big spaces are where we make a chain and skip a chain. And so you can see here, this is the chain where we just did our double crochet. We skipped this one, and then into this one, we double crochet. We're gonna do this all the way to the end, so I'll meet you there. So we reached the end, and so this is what it should look like. This initial side that we started with is completely flat. This is gonna represent the bottom of our shirt. All the stitches that go on the bottom side of our shirt are always, always, always gonna be flat. No increases, no decreases. On the other side, we are gonna do increases for quarter one that are like pretty sharp. So I'm gonna first show you how to do a fast increase on this side. So we start with a chain. We just ended with 2 double crochets. We start with a chain, and then into that very last chain stitch, we add a double crochet again. So now we have 2 double crochets inside this very same stitch. And then we do a triple crochet into that very same stitch. So triple crochet, you yarn over twice, and then you insert your hook. So you end up with 4 loops, pull through 2, like this, pull through 2, like this, and then finally pull through 2 one more time. So you end up with an extra 2 double crochet cluster here. Now the next row is going to also have increases. In fact, every row is going to have increases on this side and no increases or decreases on this side. So to go straight from this into another increase, we're going to do 1, 2, 3 chains, turn over. So now that we chain 3 into that very same treble crochet, I'm going to do a double crochet. Now we do a chain. Now into the exact same treble crochet stitch, we do another double crochet. And now finally moving on from this stitch here, we move on to the double crochet, and we do a double crochet on top of that double crochet. Chain. So in this way, we started with 1 cluster that we increased to 2 on the first row. And then this row here, this 1 extra increased cluster is now also turned into 2 separate clusters. See that? So basically every row we're increasing a double crochet cluster. Now, as in the previous row, we skip the chain stitches always, and the double crochets, we put double crochets on top of. So that's 1 double crochet, it's another double crochet, and a chain. See that? So we go from 1, 2 to 1, 2, 3. And I'm going to just keep going. Skip the chains, right? Double crochets on top of the double crochets. Chain, because there's a chain here. Skip, go to the double crochet. Double crochet, double crochet, and continue that pattern all the way to the bottom of quadrant 1. So here I am finishing row 2. So we do a double crochet on top of the very last double crochet, and then this row of chains here, we're going to treat that very beginning 3 chains from row 1, we're going to treat that as a double crochet and just do a double crochet right on top of it. Chain 3, chain 2, and we're done. So as you can see, at the bottom we didn't do any increases, And moving on to the third row, we also don't do any increases. We just go straight into the next double crochet here and do a double crochet there, followed by a chain. So as you can see, no increases here. We're just going straight into the same pattern as before, where the double crochets have double crochets stuck on top of them. The chain spaces have chains above them. And we just keep going. So this really simple pattern that we're going to use for basically the entire shirt, just like that. And so for rows 3 and 4, you're going to repeat the exact same increase. And you're going to want to make as many rows as you need to make to get to 1/16 of the measurement of measurement 1. So for me, measurement 1 was 36 inches. Divided by 16, that's like 2 point something. So I want to make sure to get to 2 point something. So for me, that's going to be, I think, at least 2 more rows. So I think 2.5 inches is what I'm going to do. So 2.5 inches, that's going to be maybe 5 rows. And once I'm done, I'll show you the next step. I'm not actually going to make the full thing. I'm just going to make a abridged mini shirt for y'all. The instructions for quadrant 2 and quadrant 3 are exactly the same. The only difference is that quadrant 2 is going to use a different color of yarn than the rest of the outfit. So quadrant 2 and quadrant 3, you're going to want to start from the bottom, so where there are no increases. Make a chain of 3, double crochet on top of the double crochet, and continue the same pattern of skipping chains and double crocheting on top of double crochets. But things are going to change when we get to the other side, where we were previously in quarter 1 doing increases. We're now going to do decreases, and those decreases are going to look different than what you might expect. So I'll meet you when I get there. Cool. So we're now 2 clusters away from the end. So 2 clusters basically means 4 double crochets with a little chain space in them. So we're going to turn 4 into 3 in this row. So to do that, we're going to just do our regular double crochets on top of double crochets for the first cluster. And for that second cluster, we're going to do a treble crochet into that last chain space here. So in the middle of this cluster over here. Yarn over, yarn over, yarn over. So that created a really slight decrease. We turn over. So we've gone from 4 stitches here to 3. Now we do chain 1, 2, 3. And we're going from 3 to 2 on this row. So we're skipping this double crochet and just doing a double crochet onto the next double crochet here. Just like that. We chain, and we go back to doing double crochets on top of double crochets, chains on top of chains, skipping chains, all the way down. So I'm just going to do a couple of these so you can see what these decreases look like a little bit better. Cool. So from here down was quarter 1. Quarter 2, we took these 2 clusters here, turned it into a cluster plus a treble crochet, and turned that into a single cluster on its own. Cool. And so now we're back to square 1. So in the next row, we're going to do exactly the same. The next 2 rows, we're going to do exactly the same thing for quarter 2 and for quarter 3. So I'll meet you there, and I'll show you a second time around how this process works. Actually, before I meet you there, I'm going to show you something that you already know, which is that at the bottom here, we're not going to do any increases or decreases. We're going to follow the exact same instructions that we did for quarter 1. So I'll meet you when I'm going back in this direction on the next row. Hello. As I promised, I didn't do any increases or decreases on the bottom edge. And on the top edge, now I'm going to show you what I do. So double crochets on top of double crochets, as always. Chains on top of chains. Sorry, I'm going fast. I'm just trying to get y'all to the end here. So we have this double crochet cluster here at the end. And we're going to do exactly what we did in the last row, where we do a treble crochet. We skip this chain, we skip this double crochet, and into the last cluster of chains, which we're treating like a double crochet, we do this treble crochet. So we yarn it over twice, pull through two, pull through two, pull through two. Turn over, chain three, and then skip the next double crochet and double crochet on top of the next one. And so now we can go back to doing the chain and double crochet repeats. Oops, I dropped my yarn. Chain, double crochet repeats. And do that all the way to the end. And so we're doing that for quarter 2 and quarter 3. Quarter 4, I'll show you next. So you're gonna wanna start quarter 4 from the bottom edge, as we always start our quarters. And this is the last quarter / quadrant. We chain 2, and again, we're not doing any increases or decreases here at the bottom. Now for these, we're gonna wanna end our rows early. We're not only just gonna end our row early, but we're also gonna end with a decrease. And it's gonna be a different decrease than what we were doing before. We're gonna skip entire clusters in these decreases. So I'll show you how to do these stronger decreases in a second. To get to know how much space we're gonna leave empty here on the top edge and how early we're gonna basically have to end our row, we're gonna take measurement 3 and divide it by 3. So I'm just gonna pretend that we have to end 1, 2, 3, 4 clusters away. So I'll end my row here on the 5th cluster. So I'll show you how we do that. So back to what I was doing. We start quarter 4 with doing double crochets on top of double crochets and chains on top of chains. So that means double crochet, chain, skip, double crochet, chain, skip, double crochet. So to end here between the 5th and the 4th stitch, in the chain space, we're going to do a treble crochet into that space. We do treble crochet by pulling through 2 loops 3 times. Turn over, and as you can see, we went from 4 clusters to 2, or sorry, from 2 clusters to 1. So we're going to skip this cluster on the next row as well. The way we do that is we chain 3, and then we do a double crochet, not into the first double crochet or the second one. We're skipping this cluster entirely. We're doing it onto this 3rd double crochet here. Like that. And do that again. Double crochet and chain. And then we continue with the pattern that we know very well. All the way to the bottom of our shirt. And in the case of your shirt, it's going to go faster because we've skipped a lot of rows now, and we're decreasing really quickly. And in my case, it's going to go really fast because I'm making this like mini shirt here. So here we are, all the way at the bottom. And to end, you just do one last chain stitch here. And you take your yarn, you cut it, pull it through. So here we have a mini representation of what one of your front panels is going to look like. Quadrant 1 is represented by these 2 rows here. Quadrant 2 and 3 are represented by these rows. And quadrant 4 is represented by these 2 rows. So this is your sleeve hole here. This is where your neck hole is going to be. That's why it's angled. And then this is where your shoulder is going to be. And that's why it's angled a lot more slightly down. Cool. So make 2 of these. And now I'm going to show you how to make the back panels. Once you've made 2 of these front panels, you're ready to start the back panel. The back panel is very, very similar in shape. With the exception of the first quadrant, everything else is the same. So I'm going to show you how you start off your first quadrant. We begin by creating a chain. This time though, the chain isn't the length of the chain that we use for the front panels. It's actually this length here. So you're going to count how many stitches you had on this very first row of quadrant 2, and that's what you're going to use. And an easy way to count these stitches is to count how many of these double crochets we have. So let's do that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have 35 groups of 2 double crochets, and that means I have 34 times 3 plus 2 stitches to put in my chain stitch. Once we've made that first row of chains, we're going to start as previously by chaining 3, skip that 4th chain, and into that 5th chain we do a double crochet, and that's going to be our first cluster. And then we do a chain, we skip a chain, and into the next chain after that we do a double crochet, then another one, chain, skip a chain, next chain, double crochet. We're going to do this all the way to the end, basically exactly the same way as we started quarter 1, but we won't do any increases. So I ended with no increases. I just did double crochets all the way to the last stitch. And as you can see, I ended up with 14 clusters, much like I calculated I would end up that way. And to start the next row, we also start without any increases. So for all the rows in quarter 1, we just start with chain 2, then a double crochet on top of the double crochet, and then chains on top of chains, double crochets on top of double crochets, all the way down until you've made the entirety of quarter 1. It's that simple. So we're going to do that for all of quarter 1 for both back panels, and then quadrants 2 or quarters 2, 3, and 4 are going to be exactly the same as the front panels. So that's it for the instructions for the panels. Next, I'm going to show you how to stick them all together.
Much for me. So he's really highlighting kid, like I'm a kid for coming for him.
Don't do that. So I pinned the back pieces together. Now I'm going to pin at the shoulder. Aligning these white stripes is a great way to figure out where to put these pins. You're only pinning together the 2nd and the 3rd quadrant. Okay, now we're ready to measure. Let's put it on. So there's 2 things I'm looking for. One is the beginning of the increases on both sides. This should be really tight around your neck. And the reason why is because we still haven't added the rows in the middle that will be where the buttonholes are. So if it's not tight now, it's gonna be like really loose later on. Secondly, I'm looking for the fact that my arms being able to fit through the hole, which they absolutely do. And then I'm looking for length. I want it to be long enough that it's hitting below the shorts that I'm wearing right now. And finally, I want to make sure that it's not too tight or too loose. I think this is a good amount of drapeage, especially considering that it's going to have a couple more rows here in the middle. So yeah, I also just wanted to wear it without a shirt to see if it was actually something you could wear without a shirt. And I think it's actually, it's weird to use the word modest with this, but I think it's like modest enough. Like I think for the summer, it does cover the majority of my skin, you know? Another thing to look out for is that your shoulders are where your arm, or like they end where your shoulder ends and your arm begins, and that's exactly where they are. So all in all, success. The first time I made this, it was way too big. It was a little too gappy. Didn't really look like the shirt I was trying to make, so very happy that I restarted. If you're enjoying this video and you want to see more like it, subscribe and let me know that you like this, and I'll be happy to make more of this in the future. Imagine we have 4 pieces. So we have 2 back pieces and 2 front pieces. The front pieces don't get attached in the middle, right? Because you want to be able to open your shirt here in the middle. So no attachments there. I'll show you how to do the buttonholes and the rest of that stuff later. Here on the sides, we do attach the front and the back pieces together. And the way we do that is with slip stitches. So you're going to want to align your stitches so that all the chain spaces are right on top of each other. And starting here at the top treble crochet stitch, the very last treble crochet of quarter 4, we attach our yarn and we create a chain stitch. And on the next chain space, we go through both double crochet spaces of both layers. We do a chain. In these chain spaces, we do 2 chains through that space. And then we'll repeat that all the way to the bottom. So double crochet space, 1 chain, chain spaces, 2 chains. Sorry, I keep saying chains. Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. 2 single crochets versus 1 single crochet. So these are all single crochet stitches. 1 single crochet stitch in the single crochet space or double crochet space, and 2 single crochet stitches in those chain spaces. We're doing that all the way to the bottom-ish. Don't go all the way to the bottom. I forgot to say. We're going to want to leave a little slit here on the side, and that's going to allow the shirt to move a little bit more freely around your hips. So how little of a slit? I'm going to leave 4 inches from the bottom. So when you reach 4 inches from the bottom, measuring from the bottom seam here to that last stitch, you're going to want to cut off your yarn, pull it through. There you go. And this edge here is going to kind of stick out because it's all these single crochet stitches, so that's going to be moved to the inside of the garment. That way it doesn't look like this. See how it's very visible? So this will be the right side of the garment. We're also going to want to attach the top and the bottom seams. So we're going to attach all the way from the beginning of quarter 2 to the end of quarter 3, and this is going to be the shoulder seam. So again, on the wrong side, we're going to do single crochet stitches in the exact same way as we did for the side. The only difference is that here we're going to have some treble crochets or some chain 3s. For those, we're going to do single crochets 3 times. And so we don't have any double crochet spaces at all. And the ones that we do have are long-wise. See how they're like in the long direction, not in the short direction? So for those, we're going to put 2 single crochet stitches. So again, 3, and then 2. And when we reach the end of quarter 3, we do a chain, yarn over, or sorry, bind off. And now this is the one side of our outfit. We're going to do this for both sides. And so this is the front here. This is the back. We turned it inside out. We have our sleeve hole here. And we have our neck hole up here. Now we just have to attach the backs together. And so I'll show you that on the full-sized garment, there's one major seam left over, and that is the middle of the garment right here. Or sorry, the middle back specifically. So to attach the middle back, pulling out all the pins, and this time it's gonna operate a little differently. We're attaching the yarn only one side. Pick whichever side you like. You're gonna chain 3, yarn over, and we're gonna attach to the double crochet space on the other side, a double crochet. Now we go back to this side, and in the chain space we do a double crochet, and on the other side in the chain space we do a double crochet, another double crochet, this time in the double crochet space, again for the other side. And we keep doing that, alternating between the chain spaces and the double crochet spaces, really in any space, whatever space is next for a given side, that's where you're gonna put a double crochet. And so that's what it ends up looking like. So now it's time to put the buttonholes on. So all the buttonholes are gonna be on the right side, and the left side is where the buttons are gonna go. Hey folks, so let me show you how I did. So on the side that's gonna have the buttons on it, I did 5 rows of single crochets, going up and down. And to begin each row, I did a chain, and then turned over and did single crochets. And so that's what that looks like. It should end up with like pretty square edges and a pretty tight stitch pattern. And then on this side, I have trebles. I have trebles that are gonna allow for buttons to go in. So I have 3 rows of single crochets and 1 row of trebles. And so buttons are gonna go here. These are the buttonholes. And all I have to do now is add a collar and some sleeves. So to tell you what I did with the collar, it was really easy. It was basically exactly the same as the button placket. So I just do 16 rows of single crochet stitches, and between each row I do a chain and I turn over so that it's even. The first row is going to be a little different. There are double crochets that you're stitching onto, so each double crochet space you'll stitch 2 single crochets into. But that's only for that first row. After that, just make single crochets on top of single crochets all the way up. Here's how to crochet a perfect short sleeve every time. So you're gonna have a shirt, right? And it's gonna have a little hole for your arm. I usually make my rows in this direction like this. And if I was sewing, the shape of this piece that I'm attaching here would be something like this. Like a little normal curve. But I'm not sewing, right? So with crochet, you kind of do pretty sharp angles. And it's actually gonna look something more like this. Straight, straight, straight. These like 90-degree angles here on the side. And then straight on top. And then angled on both of these sides with 135-degree angles here, 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 and here. So basically like an octagon and a square stuck together, or what some would call a trapezoid and a square stuck together, and a rectangle stuck together. Right, and so if you do that, you'll end up with something like this, where this long edge here is this, and then this rectangle here is kind of this part. So to do that and to get these 45-degree angles, if you're doing granny squares with granny stitches, you can just do 4 stitches first, then add an extra stitch on each side. So now you have 5, and then 6, and just keep increasing 1 every time you start a new row, right? And you're going like this, then you do this side, then you do that side, right? So what that looks like is you'll go around like this, then back around, and then back. It's kind of hard to draw on a 2D surface. I'm going to show you right now what that looks like. To do the sleeve hole, we're going to want to start 4 double crochet stitches away from the shoulder seam here. See? And the way we start is we just tie the yarn on And now we're gonna do single crochets all along the edge here. So in these double crochet spaces, we're always gonna do 2 single crochets. In the chain spaces, we're always gonna do 2 double crochets or 2 single crochets. In the double crochet spaces, we're always gonna do 1 single crochet. So it's all single crochets. Anytime we see a treble, we'll do 3 single crochets. So once you made it all the way back around, into that first single crochet, you're gonna make a slip stitch. And that is our sleeve hole ready to go. So without cutting off the yarn, see how we have these chain spaces, double crochet stitches. So, and we have these single crochet stitches all the way over the top. So what we're gonna do to start is chain 3, skip 2 double crochets, skip 2 single crochets, and on the third one, double crochet. On the fourth one, double crochet. And the fifth one, we're gonna skip, do a chain. On the sixth, we double crochet. And as you can see here, this is the pattern that we've done before, where we do groups of double crochets followed by chains, skipping a stitch, then more double crochets. And we're gonna do this basically until we have 4 double crochet clusters on each side of our seam here. So you can see here, this is the shoulder seam all the way up here. And here's the side seam at the bottom. This whole thing is the sleeve. And we have 4 single crochet or 4 double crochet clusters. And this here is basically a treble crochet increase. And here we have our little gap. And we continue. So we're gonna do 4 more clusters on this side. Double crochet, skip, 2 double crochets, skip, 2 double crochets, skip, 2 more, and instead of skipping, we do 3 chains, 1, 2, 3. It's gonna basically be a treble crochet. We skip the next single crochet, 1, 2, 3 single crochets away. We'll do a little slip stitch. And then we're gonna do 3 more slip stitches into all these single crochets here. So 1, 2, 3, turn over, and that was the first row of the sleeve. To start the second hole, to do the second row, see how we have all these slip stitches here? We have the 3 chains that basically act as a treble crochet. And then we're back to these traditional clusters. So in this 3 chain space, we're gonna do 2 double crochets. 1, 2, chain. And then on top of these 2 double crochets, we're gonna do, on top of these double crochets here, we're gonna do our regular double crochets, chain, double crochet, chain. We'll keep doing that as you've seen many times before. So what that's created is basically a first row that didn't have any increases, and then this second row starts with an increased double crochet stitch. So we have an extra cluster increased at the very beginning of every row of the sleeve. As long as we have a sleeve hole to fill the edge of, we keep doing these increases at the beginning, and we're gonna do increases at the end as well. So I'm gonna reach the end, and I'll show you how I do an increase there. Okay, so here we're reaching the end of row 2, and so we're back at this very first treble crochet. In that treble crochet, we're gonna make 2 double crochets. We're gonna do a chain. And then we're gonna go back to making stitches on the single crochets on the edge of the armhole. So we skip 1, 2, 3, slip stitch there, then 3 more slip stitches. Like that. Turn over, and we're going to continue doing the same thing as we did in the previous row, where we do a double crochet into this chain space here. Followed by a chain, and then we do double crochets on top of the double crochets, as you've seen us do throughout the entire garment, with chain spaces between each one. Cool. So that's how you make your sleeve. And once you've finished putting stitches all the way around the sleeve hole and you have no more single crochets to add stitches to, then you're just going to do this pattern of double crochets separated by single crochets on the round, always putting your double crochets on top of a previous double crochet stitch and always putting your chains on top of a previous row of chain until you have the desired sleeve length that you're going for. For me, I did 3 rounds at that very end. I ended up having a little bit of yarn left over when I finished the shirt, and I think it's because the mesh makes it take up less yarn than what I was expecting it would. And so what that means is I ended up trying out making some pants, and I did make those pants. And so in my next video, I'm going to show you the process for those pants.